For the newly indoctrinated, Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files follows the story of a professional wizard in Chicago. We've started our podcast as a way to help break down the series' most important moments, characters, and lore. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.
Welcome to the McAnally's Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode 5.16, Wolf in Geek's Clothing. My name is Tansenn, and I'm joined by Maggie.
Hello, hello.
And Jess.
Hello.
Are you an alien automaton? Kelpies camping in your creek? Bigfoots barged into your bunker? Elves on your shelves? Ghouls in your garden? Poltergeists in your pantry? We believe you. Midwestern Arcane offers competitive rates for exclusive original photos or documented experiences. Call today. Submissions become exclusive property of Midwestern Arcane. Artistic license may be taken.
Chapter 32. Harry, Murphy, and Tera are trapped in the pit awaiting the arrival of the Loup Garou. Marcone manages to release one of the ropes allowing them to escape, only to have the Loup Garou arrive. Tera distracts it while Dresden uses one of the belts and transforms into his own wolf form to take on the Hexenwolves.
Pretty much everything I love about the Dresden Files happens in this chapter. Like, honestly, like, literally everything. Like, there's this one point
And
when,
yet
like...
you've never gone back.
I know, because it's only in one chapter. I can read the rest of the series and love everything about the Dresden Files than just read this one moment here.
Okay.
But the moment when, like, Murphy, her priority, she's like, I wish I had my pistol. I wish we had more time to talk and forgive each other. It's like, aw, Murphy. But also she's like, I want my pistol first. We can be friends after. I want my gun.
Yeah.
And then there's, like, a moment when, like, Tera is like, she's like, close your eyes to the werewolf babies. And she's like, it's going to be like, just be quiet. Or just close your eyes. It's going to be okay, you know? And it's just like, oh, like it gets to like, there's moments in the book when it's just like so, everything fucking sucks and heart-wrenching. And then there's also a moment when Harry is just like, all right, like backed into a corner, last plan B, ditch all attempts. Let's just like go fucking crazy right now and come up with the most batshit plan in the world. And then there's all of the, like, ever-loving, like, shit-talking with your enemy back and forth. And even, like, at the beginning of this chapter, he's like, hey, John! And then, obviously, just violence. So it's just, like, everything in the Dresden Files happens right off the bat in this chapter, too. Where it's just, like, you get the heartwarming, you get the snark, you get the fighting, you get the violence. It's, like, everything that you need in the series is all right here. Where it's, like, super amazing, cool plan come up within a moment. And, like,
Some sidestepping to the magic-y. Harry can't do any, but we still get Harry doing magic.
right, you know? But it's like, you know, it's kind of very condensed in this one chapter where it's just like, okay, like, Harry's gonna die, so we'll let him hit all of his greatest hits right now.
Yeah, right. Each and every one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me, like in Suits, yeah. When you're backed up against the wall, you break down the goddamn wall. Something like that. So yeah, Harry's always very good at that. He's always getting backed into a corner, and then usually he just blows a hole through it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sends a Loup Garou through it after, or whatever.
It's like one of those things, and like like I know sometimes people. It's one of those like Rotten Tomato things where it's like everyone the audience loves, the critics hate, and everything the critics love, the audience hates.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those moments like he's always backed into a corner and then he just magically has a way to do it. But it's like, yeah, but like Harry,
But it works because it's
like,
about
yeah.
magic. It's like, that's the whole point.
Yeah, it's
is
like
that
that's
he
the whole
can.
point. Like, yeah, like, you know, I'm not one of those people who tends to critique those moments because I'm like, yeah, but it was so cool, right?
Yeah.
So it does feel like when we do this kind of breakdown podcast thing, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Weird how you just always manage to get, but it's like that's the whole point.
But I was gonna say that's
main
the
character.
beauty.
Like,
I think
you
that's
don't
part
have
of
a
why I
book, right?
like fantasy and fiction and stuff sometimes is because exactly like in real life you're like, well, that wouldn't. But it's like no, but I guess that's the whole point is that we don't have to follow all the rules. You can get out of these impossible situations because you can just suddenly make your broom fly out of the castle and into your hands, or you can just like that was funny listening to that episode. And you're like, he just like so unnecessarily like blows a hole in the wall like dramatic. I'm like, but it was such a good hole like that was. So it's like I'm like there was point. He didn't want to have to go back through all like the dying, yelling, and that was it. It was the shortest, easier connection to there was just...
Here it goes. I knew she'd start breaking down all the episodes she missed.
I know. Oh, I will. That's going to be bonus content for y'all. That's where I'm going to go through and
Point
like,
one.
add all my, like, yeah, my agreements, my
Addendums.
disagreements, my corrections, my what I liked and what I...
Did you notice there was a few times I was like speaking as Maggie right now? I know she'd say this right now.
But yes, no, it was one of those funny things just listening to you being like, it was so funny. That's like, when he was so much editing, it just blew a hole in the wall. But that's because that's what he does.
So getting back into Dresden, he's got this moment with Murphy, he's got this moment with Tera, and then he turns his attention to Marcone. He's like, okay, buddy, batshit plan starting now.
Yeah. John, can you hear me? What do you want? Hey, John. I told you not to call me that. But yeah.
So he begins to ask about that knife. So he confirms that he was mostly disarmed.
Yeah. They found that and took it. Oh,
but they didn't
fuck
find
now.
the other
What are you doing? Getting the knife they didn't find.
I like that banter that goes on between the two of them right there. I'm like,
you know what?
They're at the end of the world as far as they're concerned, but they're still like, yep.
That's like the best thing about Dresden, though. But that point, though, about Marcone when he's like getting the knife they didn't find, it like reminds me of that Captain John Harkness scene. I'm pretty sure when it's like he like takes out Torchwood, yeah, and he takes out a gun and it's like he's completely butt naked. It's like, where did you pull that from? He's like, you don't want to know. I'm like, Marcone. Admittedly, drug smuggling is his profession, but
no wonder it takes him so long to get the knife.
I hope it was sheathed at least in that case.
He can afford a sheath, okay?
Yeah, but
he's living in a golden mansion.
But yes. I love all the interactions, mostly between Harry and Dresden, just the way, because Harry and
Marcone.
And Harry says it himself. He's like, he just loves to get like adolescent and petty about a lot, right? And Marcone's always so like, that's very impolite.
Marcone always acts like he's above it, but he always hits toe-to-toe with Dresden anyway.
But he just does it in a much more refined, like, distinguished with dignity.
It's like he's still there doing it.
And yeah, he's like, I will not stoop to your petty insults, even though you're a slime.
While I'm here. Insult.
Yeah. It's like, yes, looks at him, and it's just, I do have a way. And he's like, damn it, you're a miserable, stupid bastard for making a deal with Denton. And he's like, now do you believe me? He's like, yes, do tell me that you told me so with your last breath. He's like,
I will, actually.
He's like, I was rather aware of that, but perhaps I can make amends. Like, why? What are you going to do about it? Get the knife they did. But yeah, I love the way that, again, the way Marster's always right. Like, Marcone is always so calm, cool, and collected, right? And Harry's just like, fuck you, I'm going to poke you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you.
So funny. It almost reminds me of,
get
like,
out of this garden walk.
Odie and Garfield?
Yeah. A little bit. But yeah.
So Marcone does manage to get that knife out and lowers he gets to cut one rope of the platform.
The platform, yeah. So doesn't get himself out of the situation. Yeah, he's still strung up there. But while they're like bickering and fighting, right? And he starts like swinging to get like momentum and reach or whatever. And he's like, yeah, blah, 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 shut up a minute. And he's just like, flick, and manages to actually fucking hit this rope tied to the pine tree and sever it. And they're like, Murphy's like, holy shit.
This guy's scary. And I think it should be mentioned too, the Loup Garou is like standing over the pit.
Yes, he is now shown up.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's here.
So I like even more, like you've got this like drooling beast over you. And Marcone is like doing like knife tricks and they're like,
shut up. I gotta hit this. We only got the one.
But it's funny too. It literally seems like one of those like cartoon moments when like you're all just like, the enemy is right there, but you're like, wait. And they're all looking at this other really cool thing. They're like, oh, like hold up their scorecards, 10 points. I'm like, all right, back to the monster.
So Dresden gets his shit together and hauls his weary broken body up out of this pit and is about to and all of a sudden realizes he's crawling out right into the jaws of the Loup Garou and is like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
Slides down the and I don't know if anybody's ever done it. I did some gymnastics. You don't want to just slide down a rope. That's jarring. Well, not the sliding down. I mean, if you do that carefully, you can avoid. But the rope burn factor aside, suddenly you're sliding. All of a sudden, you grip back on and just that's gonna jar that damn shoulder of his real bad.
Yeah,
that's not fun.
He's fucked up.
That's extra added there. So he has to kind of do the whack-a-mole a few times, pop his head up until he can,
Well, Marcone was nice enough to have given him a warning and a heads up once the Loup Garou jumped
he's
at
like,
him.
yeah. And then I think is this the part where he even like whistles at him a little bit or something at the one point, because he's finally distracts him enough that Dresden can pop out and then Dresden's got to do like the cartoon super run like around before, so he can get the pit between him and this monster, it's like, no, you can't touch me, but yeah, finally.
So he does make it out of the pit, closely followed by Tera.
But his belly flop out of the pit.
This is the coolest thing, though, is that when Tera comes out of the pit and she does this whole like, okay, you go handle the FBI, I'll handle McFinn. And you see them go toe-to-toe, and Harry says, he's like, you can totally tell the difference between Tera and the Loup Garou, Tera and the Alphas, Tera and the Hexenwolves. Like, there is just something about Tera that is like, this is like a dance. Like, this is just primal, in tune. Like, this is her ball game more than anyone else's.
Swift,
total,
graceful,
Yeah, where they were fast, Tera was fast and graceful. Where they were quick, Tera was quick and elegant. She made them look like amateurs. She was something more primal, more in tune with the wild than they would ever be.
Yeah, so it's just something like intrinsic within Tera. That is just
intrinsic, yeah. And admittedly, with the alphas, they are amateurs. It's like, made them look like amateurs. And like, you just said they were a bunch of pimply-faced college. But yes, as far as like Denton, sorry.
Even as we know, the Dentons, though, they've only been doing this for like 6 or so months too, right?
That's their new code name, the Dentons. Screw the FBI, the Dentons. But yeah, exactly. Like, yes, but again, they're adults. They're trained in fighting and
FBI,
you know what I mean, like that way. But yeah, they're new to wolfhood, whatever. But yeah, I'm like, well, they are. But yeah, she's just like, because he's like, you can't take on that thing by yourself, and she's like, don't worry about it. Just you go deal
Watch me.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's not that she can necessarily take him on, pound for pound, muscle for muscle, but that's what she doesn't need to. Like, she's just so much more comfortable, so much more better at being in
quick
this.
And agile.
Yeah, quick and agile and whatever, right? That she's like, I can just stay that one step ahead of him. I don't necessarily need to. And yeah, makes
she just needs to be faster.
That's right, yeah.
Which apparently she totally is.
Yeah, exactly. Just can dart in and out and do the whole thing. So while he's like, oh, okay, shit, I guess she's got that, and just about lets Ben jump up and rip his face off.
And I think that, though, like, just one more thing about Tera, too, is that, like, he says earlier on in the books, too, like, like, whereas the rest of them are all much more using their sight and power, As a wolf, she's got way more focus on her other sentences. Like, it's nothing on the sight, right? So it's a little bit extra, too. Like, where the rest of them are still reliant on, like, that human sight predator reliance, she's like, no way. Like, my scent, my touch, my vibrations in the air, hearing, like, she doesn't need to see him. So that's just, one more ball game. One more ball in her... I don't know what the fucking phrase is.
One more thing, she's on the ball.
One more ball in her court.
One more ball in her court.
Is that the phrase? I don't know.
It could be. Point in her favor.
Point in her favor?
Yeah, there we go.
That's
match,
let's
love,
do that.
sex. Yeah.
All of the above.
But yeah, exactly.
Some kind of sports analogy.
Sure. We play sports here. Ball game. Sports ball.
It was the 5th quarter of the hockey game. And, yeah, okay, so he's watching them go off, and then, he's a boom, right? He just thankfully misses him, because he's completely got his back turned watching the other action, and, Ben manages to miss him and hit a tree, and he's like, oh, yeah, shit, there's people out here trying to kill me and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then, she, again, naked. She's half the shirt's gonna get in the way. I can't, reach under my shirt for the belt, but her skirt, at least, is still on. So, he follows the legs up, past the skirt, to the bare-breasted torso, but
Tits.
Yeah. So this is my reread of Full Moon. Again, this is only the second time.
I think we've established that,
right? Have I said it enough times? Totally forgot that Harry dons the belt.
Oh, damn, girl!
Totally forgot. When I read that, I was like,
what? Like, see, that's what you get for not looking at it again.
Totally, because there's so many moments now in the future books where I'm just like, and again, a little bit of a spoiler, like he burns the belt at the end of this book, right?
When did you say you read this originally? Because you were talking about it last.
Yeah, I said 13 or 14 or something like that.
So it would have been even maybe slightly earlier when you read, because that was book 5 or something like that. You were talking about the scene with. Oh, no, it was this one, because you were talking about the initials. I love how you're like, I didn't know they had sex.
Yeah.
I just really funny because Matt's like, yeah, I didn't know either.
Yeah.
But I seem to recall too, I think with that at the time his first wife, well, she was
Jim Butcher's wife?
Jim Butcher's first wife was a romance novelist. And so if I recall correctly, I seem to remember him saying something about going to her for some like advice on things on how, because he's all like snarky, hairy and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how do I write in like a sex scene that's not like totally gross or
Hey,
weird?
wifey.
Yeah, I was like,
That would make a little sense because it seems like
It is a little
out of
bit.
place, totally.
yeah, and I mean, like, you can tell, like, again, it has, the, like you say, it is a touching scene. It's got, you know, like, he did work in some of the elements and characteristics of, like, Harry and Susan. But, again, you're like, this is not really Harry's normal, but I think that was why he had somebody else kind of smooth out the edges and probably help shape some of
I like that. I'll take that.
the
Because that does give a little
actual,
bit of-
yeah, like, how the fuck do I write a sex scene, honey?
That's some fun foreplay between two authors.
Practical demonstration.
I was gonna say, I was like, well, Jim.
Okay, hang on a sec. So when he's doing this, just
Take
call
notes.
it that. that movie you just did there, honey, just make sure you change this word to that and describe this as this and anyways. So Harry has a belt on too.
Dear. Yeah. So that for me, I totally forgotten all about that or didn't even realize when I first read it. Who knows? Point is that reading it now, I was just like, whoa, this should be like
Harry
this should
drank
have a
the Kool-Aid.
throwback way more often in future books. Like, he should be referencing this all the goddamn time.
So that one time I was a wolf.
No, but seriously, like, I don't want to get into spoilers, but he drinks the Kool-Aid in 37 more ways in the future, too.
Yeah.
Every time he's offered Kool-Aid, Harry drinks it. Like, I swear to God.
Just a sip to be polite.
I just swear to God, like there's a certain scene when we get to changes.
Just rubs a little on his gums.
When we
and
get to changes and he's being offered a buffet of Kool-Aid. He's like, which one am I going to take? I'm surprised that he's never gone back to this moment and been like, well, let me think on this and what happened then and how I felt then. Like, I'm just surprised how it's never come up again because I have read from Grave Peril onward multiple times. I've read those books a lot. Summer Night is one of my absolute favorite books.
Yeah.
Skin Game Changes. Like, those are some Ghost
Yes.
Story is one of my absolute favorites, right? So I think those 4 books, like, I've read a lot of those ones or
Read those
seeked
ones a
out
lot, yeah.
scenes from
Yes.
those books to reread over and over and over again, if not the entire novel. And I think that there was a lot of times in those books when he could have been like, remember that time I was a motherfucking werewolf? And the fact that he's never said that, I would have noticed if he brought it up. Like
what?
I'm like,
What are you
when the
talking
fuck
about
were you
here?
a goddamn werewolf, right? And even when he's trying to connect with the alphas in future books, why the fuck don't you ever like, well, that one time that I was kind of a werewolf for 5 minutes, like
and
I
almost
just
fuck things up and maybe that's it. Harry's
right,
just
maybe,
repressing.
but like, and even as we get like again, no
I can't
spoilers,
allow
but there's gonna
myself
be
to-
a time when comes into power in the future, and I feel like there's times when Harry could have been like, motherfucker, like there was this one time when this happened to me, and I get it as the books go on, Harry, you know, he comes into power in so many different ways and so many different avenues. Yeah, maybe these early on his career didn't matter, but I still feel like this could have been brought up more. Like, it almost to me, like even Jim forgot about it because I'm like, this should be talked about way more, at least once more. At least once,
like somewhere can we have a throwback?
Right, like, because
remember that,
for me, like, again, like, I was completely blindsided getting to this part in the book. Like, again, I don't even either I missed it the first time I read it, or I've just completely forgotten
Well, I'd
about
like
it.
to. You must have forgotten because I mean,
'Cause,
there's
yeah,
a
I mean, this
whole
is pretty
scene
big. This is
descri-
pretty
yeah, I
big.
was like, if you glossed over that whole scene
Yeah.
with it, I don't know who you thought was what was happening.
I didn't really
there.
read books when I was a kid. I just
I'm
said I
getting
did.
That. I am getting that.
I'd carry a book around for a couple of weeks, and I've been like osmosis, right? It was at my hip for a couple of weeks in my school bag. Done and done. So point is that Harry takes over the wolf, becomes one with the wolf.
Vision
And-
sharp enough to count the hairs on.
Yeah. Again, like, this is just such a big deal that references to so many more points
And
in
he
the
makes
future
it
books.
sound so cool. Like I really want to
so-
see the world through a wolf's senses.
It sounds a little bit like Manic Magic Harry. Like
Totally.
really,
another
really
manic
similar.
magic.
High, but
You
not
missed that episode.
quite to
No,
to the point of being grossly reckless, but pretty damn close.
But yeah, and there's like, you can totally see the shift in his tone too when he's just like, stupid bitch.
Yeah.
Like, he is so like, just like that animalistic, like, I mean, for me, it's very much like suddenly seeing Denton all over again. Like, you see, like, he is walking that line, and it's crazy that even Harry, as soon as you're overtaken by that animal,
Within minutes, Harry was like, "Oh yeah."
And something I think that we also didn't mention earlier about Denton is that, like, part of the issue is that these belts are coming from magical influence elsewhere.
Yes,
right. It's not
usually
just
a demon or some entity has
as Chauncey told us. It's like this isn't just animalistic intent thrown onto the belts. It's because it's some other demon or magical entity that is its intention is onto these belts too. So I think that's something that you should bring up. That entity is now pressing its will onto Harry. It's
that
not just
nudge,
animals.
wink,
it's not just Harry. Like we've got darker forces here that are,
and
coming
again,
into play.
this is one of the ones that like wraps around you and gives you that buffer to protect you from, right? So that's why they get to keep, right? So again, also that very real cynicism and defeatist and whatever that Denton, right? He still got that human intellect, that human choice, and that reasoning for why he got to this point, as well as now the animalistic urges to act on them and that, right? So it's like, yeah, you can see, and in some ways, like seeing how fast Harry jumps on this train, it's like surprising Denton has held out as long.
Like that
we're all like, oh, Ben just went like bananas, right? But you're like, well, shit, if it's like that quick, that fast, like surprised all of them.
And again, like Harry keeps saying, like part of what makes you as a wizard is just having the knowledge and the wherewithal to expect this, right? And so even for Harry to instantly be taken by it, it just shows you just how actually strong and far this goes.
Theoretical and practical, man. Like,
totally.
I read this was bad for me, but man, I know drugs are bad. But
Harry drinks the Kool-Aid.
It's really good.
Harry drinks the Kool-Aid and commits, but like
yeah, exactly. So
it is just a little bit eye-opening. And I think it is also one of those cool things that we did actually get to see it, because I don't think, not that I don't think, I know for a fact that we wouldn't have known otherwise just how
would not have gotten
heavy pressing this would have been.
Yeah.
So it is nice that Jim Butcher actually did throw it in there, but like, you have to understand just how fucking strong this shit is.
Yeah.
And again, we don't even know where these belts have come from, right?
Yeah, exactly. We don't know what force factor.
We've got some theories. We'll meet them later, but we won't.
We're getting into. I have to say, I'm so excited to be back in this because, like, with the beginning, it was like, well, I don't want this podcast to be just a simple recapping of, right? That's not that there's. I'm like, I wanted to, but it was like really in the first book. It's like, well, it was hard to do anything but that because you couldn't talk, like nothing else had happened.
I know, it's
until
so hard
you
when
went
we try not to do spoilers.
And then there just wasn't enough context, right? But I'm like, even now in the second book, I'm like, I love how we can start like theorizing a bit more and throwing out things and like referring back to what's happened, and like it's like actually a little bit now where you're like, okay, now stuff's getting juicy. Like we're still at the beginning of his arc, but it's like just the fact that like 10 things have happened. Now there's 10 things to talk about instead of like, well, nothing has happened yet. So
we'll be into book 3 in 1 month. And it'll be like
crazy.
That's really Grave Peril is when things
shit
like
starts go. Yeah, that's everybody's sort of
insane, right? Like
that's
that
where
is,
it. Yeah.
So I'm excited for us to be able to
picks
be like,
up. Yeah. We're just kind of.
I mean, like book 1 is evil wizards, evil mages, whatever. Book 2 is werewolves. Book 3 is vampires. So it's like you get your 3 fantasy genres like right there at the start. And once you get like those 3 big players, right? And so with each of those 3 big players, like that's when you really like you're like in the world. And then with book 4 you get the fairies.
Yeah.
So and it's instantly. It's like once you get those 4 powers, you're like, we're in this bitch.
Right. Yeah. It's so funny because every time you refer to it, you always are like Grave Peril and then like vampires. I'm always like, yeah, that is a really big, because I'm always like ghosts. That's always, because it's just, that's what starts off in that book. And I always think it's like about ghosts and stuff. And I'm like, actually, no, it's really not about the ghosts.
It's a vampire book.
It's more of a, but it's just how funny, like that initial, like first impressions, I guess, right? That's what we start to like, oh, this is going to be a book dealing with. And that's always like one of the first things that comes to mind in Grave Peril. And I'm like, that really was just the side subplot to get us launched into the other stuff. It's funny, but yeah, wizards and werewolves and vampires. Oh my. But yeah, I love how when he's going in and he's like, he can hear her like chanting, right? She's doing like and I'm like, well, Harry doesn't, like, he just stole the belt off Roger. Like, he's not going to, but I like to think that I guess this is just maybe a little bit Harry's inherent use of magic and being a wizard. Cause I was like, so I'm like, what if it had been like a specific phrase or something you had, right? Like he wasn't taught what the FBI was taught to activate these belts. So all it says is he can hear Ben doing the chant to change or whatever, and he does his own of like, wolfy, wolfy, wolf, wolf, and he's a wolf, which is Latin for all you folks out there that weren't. He basically just goes, wolfy, wolfy, wolf, wolf, and he's a wolf.
I love that.
But I'm like, well,
He's a loser.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna go with the fact that he knows sort of how to work magic, so he's just that step closer that he can just doesn't need very much to like step through and touch the magic, right? He's like, I'm a magic dude, so let's just do this. Because I was like, you could have been really fucked here, Harry.
It is kind of funny. It's like a wizard standing in a door, and he's like, abracadabra, alakazam, bippity boppity boo. Yeah.
But
Hocus pocus, and he's like, one of these is totally fine.
What if it was like open sesame specifically, and he didn't have the open sesame? He would have just stood around in that field for a while. But
I like that Harry's like, it literally doesn't matter. Hocus pocus, open sesame, whatever, bitch.
Give
me that shit.
Give me that
Move
shit.
on.
And the belt's like, yeah, all right, cool, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do some damage. I don't really care who's.
Even the belt, it's so funny. There's just so many tangents, I'm sorry. But even like in Critical Role, when Grog gets that evil sword, he's like, do I have to say anything special? And the sword's like, nah, bitch, let's kill. How do you work? Stab.
All right, I can do that. So yeah, and then he basically dispatches Ben pretty damn quick. She's all like, haha, I'm gonna get you, and he's like, boom, boom, down, bitch.
Yeah. Goes for her hamstrings.
And
disables her.
right off the bat.
And Wilson comes in and attacks in his form, and because Ben is
she
blindly
goes for
snapping at everything, he
he goes for
in for the kill.
too.
Yeah.
And then Buddy comes up and is like, whoa, wait.
Yeah, Harris, this is great too, because Harris is like, oh my god, they all escape from the pit, sees a wolf and starts shooting, and he ends up shooting Wilson.
Yeah,
He like confuses, or Harris, sorry, yeah.
I was like, Harry, but yes.
No, Harris, that's what I said. Harris comes out of the forest and shoots Wilson.
You might have, I heard Harry, whether you said Harry or whether I just misheard. But
Who puts Harris and Harry in the same book?
I know,
Come on,
right?
Butcher.
So Ron Stoppable comes hopping out and is like, oh my god, they're all free, blam, blam, blam. And then the other wolf is like, look, dude, and like does the whole scrambly thing and is like, bitch. And he's like, oh shit, Wilson.
George,
like, George? Yeah, and then it's just boom, 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 boom. Wilson's like, I don't care about this shit anymore.
And then Wilson takes out his gun and starts fucking shooting
He doesn't even bother, like, not even like, hey, it's me. He's just like, what the fuck, you asshole.
Oh, man.
Well, if they're still high off of these belts, that it would make sense.
Well,
that
Wilson a little bit. Yeah, he
would
just
go for it.
Yeah, he was just going toe to toe to fight and trying to. I get he's trying to rescue Ben, and Roger just shows up and starts popping caps in his ass, and he's like,
"Oops, sorry, sucks to be you."
Sorry, I'll give you sorry. So I don't need your fucking apology. Just die, asshole.
Right.
But yeah, that was kind of, I know, because you're kind of like, how can you, and this is, and I'm going to jump ahead slightly, I don't know if we want more to talk about in this, but yeah, but he's like, oh, and their human eyes, they couldn't even really see each other that well, and they're just like blindly firing, and I'm just like sitting in the shadows going, losers, kill each other, awesome.
Yeah, right.
But then like when Susan pops up a little bit later, and I didn't really get it this time, or any other time I've read, listened, gone through this book, but like Susan pops up and she's like, Harry? And then all of a sudden he's like, wait, what? And then he like turns to look at her or whatever. And then she's like, oh my God, Harry. And he starts, but I'm like, bitch, for so many reasons, how would you know? Like, I think the only time she saw the alphas and stuff change Susan was when they got there. They were on the street with a street light, but they all were moving off into the shadows. Like, how good a look has she gotten at Tera and any of the alphas in their wolf forms to suddenly be able to recognize on sight which each and every one of them is? She doesn't know the FBI agents in their wolf forms. She was not at the garage. They escaped from there, and she came and picked them up and
True
everything
love.
like that. She can't see his eyes. It's two wolves going at it. So until he stops and turns around, then maybe you could be like, oh, because he did say like their eyes were their own. But it's dark. He's saying these two FBI agents that are like a few feet apart can't see each other and are basically just shooting at the
And Harry
the
has
muzzle
dark eyes.
flashes.
He doesn't have very distinctive eyes.
It's not like he's got like these crystal ice blue eyes. He's got dark eyes like bajillions of other wolves and dogs.
Could be possible that he shared the plan with her when he was formulating
Maybe,
it.
but
because
how does she walk in and know this is Harry?
He did plan ahead with the belt.
My issue, though, is that, like, for me, like, I might just be imagining wrong, but, like, again, like, I've always had the Hexenwolves as just this partial shift. Like, they were never full-on wolves. They were just,
I had them as
monstrous wolves.
full on.
So I always had them as like a little bit like the Loup Garou is like a total monster, right? And the alphas are total wolves, Tera's total wolves, and then the Hexenwolves are somewhere in between, you know? Like,
Oh, no, I always pictured them as fully changing into, like, the same as the
That they're
alphas.
Okay.
big.
Just different, a little bit
Large
bigger
great
than
wolves.
a...
The size
I
of
guess,
men.
yeah, Harry had to reach through the pelt of Harris in order to steal the belt.
Yes.
Dig through the pelt. Yeah, I guess so. For me,
Yeah.
it was like there's still a little bit of like humanoid
Okay, yeah,
bipedelness
no,
a
for
little
me,
bit,
there
but-
was, no, for me, there was, yeah, no, I'm pretty sure they're full. But then it's just
Well,
one of
even
those
like
small
maybe
nitpicky
she
that I was
wasn't
just
calling
like,
to him. She was just calling in general. Like she's lost in the forest, and she's like Harry, and then one of the wolves stops and stares at her, and she's like, "Whoa, you!"
yeah, I didn't even get that
Yeah,
feel
no, I
it
don't
either.
get that.
But anyways, but yeah, I
Called
just how he's-
true love's recognition.
right. We're
Her
just gonna
soul
go with it. It's just
called to that
connected
one
to-
wolf.
They are connected by a soul gaze.
true
and
love. They've got
if
the red
Denton had
string
walked
tied
out
around
of
their
here, he
pinkies.
would forevermore have been able to recognize Harry in a moment's notice. Harry is
I don't mean from the soul gaze. I mean from true love.
I know, but I'm just saying, just that extra connection through the soul gazes, like their souls are extra special
I
intertwined.
can't wait until book 16 when Marcone and Dresden kiss.
Harry's like ambling along, trying to pass as like some homeless woman, and like Dresden, is that you? And I can just see right through it. You just always know when it's Dresden. Doesn't matter what disguise he's in. Doesn't matter if he's.
It's like when you're playing a video game and one of the NPCs is like lit up. Oh, you're who I have to talk to.
That's like for all the Firefly fans out there too. And there's the one where they're trying to catch whatever, and I think it's with Jane. I want to say that Jane is, but Captain Mal and Jane or something are going somewhere, and these guys come up to like rob their wagon, right? And he tilts up his big flower because it's a big, pioneer prairie, Little House on the Prairie type thing, and he's got the big bonnet and the dress and the and it's tips up and it's Mal in the big bonnet. He's like, you don't like my hat? He's like, what's the matter with my bonnet or something like that? And he just, I get to see Harry doing that sometimes too, just, like, oh fuck it, I'll just put on a dress myself.
Better than the
I was like,
janitor's uniform. So as you said, Susan comes out into the woods and catches attention, and eventually Harry, Susan, and Murphy all reconvene.
Well, right before we have that moment, though, there's one
Yep.
thing that I do want to bring up. Because the fight between Dresden and Denton. When they fight as wolves, I found it really interesting that there was a reoccurring music, dance, and singing theme with the fight scene. So just a couple of the quotes from that scene. A snarl bubbled out from my chest like music. We came together again like partners in a dance, moving over the grass together. I was aware of Tera dancing with the Loup Garou. We danced under the moon, and he made his first misstep. The night, the dance, the violence, all the blood of it was overwhelming. And I wonder why Butcher has chosen to have these sort of lyrical...
He had some leftovers from his wife in the sex scene.
Don't you dare cut that line, honey.
Oh, that's not gonna work. But you know what? I can use it here.
So actually, I didn't have this thought until you were just reading that out now. And I hope this isn't too spoilery, but as we said, book 4 is about the fairies. And this kind of totally gives me like the Fae vibes, where it's just like they kind of have these like very erotic parties and dances, but there's that level of just like killer on the surface, prowling at all times.
Yeah, it's the way he just. It's always as again them being very fluid and graceful, which is something that most of us human schlumps can't achieve unless we're doing dancing or something, and these choreographed, right? Because that's a lot of the point of dance is to you don't just walk in, stomp on it, right? You flow in, and all the motions are supposed to, give
Let instinct take over.
Yeah,
I don't know.
instinct, and just give those smooth lines and smooth
Transitions.
motion, right? Just transitions. Thank you. Not like chop it. Well, I mean, unless you're trying to do the robot or something. I don't know, but right. So maybe that I guess is where that to me has always been his description.
It's called crumping, and it also has a rhythm.
That too. It does, but it is not necessary. So that to me, that's with the Fae, right? It's like this, synchronized swimming, this like ballroom dancing. It's like everything's very smooth and fluid, and you can't hardly tell they're moving, but before you know it, they're slitting your throat and popping your eyeballs out onto their long nails, and they're just deadly but beautiful.
So yes, so eventually, the Scooby-Doo gang all meets back up again, and you've got Murphy and Susan and Harry and even Marcone, and like they're like, okay, like Susan, you go take the alpha pups and get them the fuck out of here because they're gonna die. Me and Tera and Murphy, we're gonna do this plan, and there's a little bit of contention there, but at least it's like, they're I don't remember the phrase I was going to use, but like they're not in a pit anymore. They're on equal footing again, equal ground.
Right.
So it's like
At less of a
we're
disadvantage.
back on this ship, baby.
Their handicap has been removed.
I was going to say, I was like, we're on plan like Z now, but it's like we're still in the game.
But yes.
And there's a little bit too, like a little bit reference earlier on, because Susan does try to argue with him, and she's like, no, like blah, and he's like, bitch, what did I say? I'm the alpha.
Yeah, he's
Y'all wanted
still
to come on this
coming
mission.
down.
Y'all gotta listen to me.
Yes, and yeah, he did. Well, like I think you mentioned the last one, he pulls Billy aside and is like, all right, all right, class. I have never called my class. But yeah, it's yeah, do what I say, or y'all can't come because this is like high stakes and blah blah blah. And yeah, everyone's trying to, and he's still got a bit of that rush that I mean, partially I don't know if shame is exactly the right word, some sort of remorse, right? Because when Susan's kind of first snaps him out of it, he's like, holy shit, like I was just about gone there. Like I didn't want to come back, right? So he's got that remorse, regret, shame, whatever exactly it is, but he's still kind of riding high on the being in charge of me. Like, as he says, like when he meets up, he's like, Denton comes out of the circle of trees in his like true form and the only real form. Right, so again with all this, dancing and the thing and the whole, right, like this is already where Denton is like, yeah, there's so much you miss as a stupid human being and blah blah blah, and and that whole thing of lost my train of thought there.
Just give in to the wolfiness.
But yeah, the whole thing of Denton coming out in like his true form, and that being with the grace of the dance and the fight and the thing, and how it's just so simple and fluid without a lot of thought and planning the way you'd have to. But yeah, he's still riding high on all of that, and is just like just do it, just listen, just right. And she's like, wow.
Yeah, he's
like
pretty at frayed ends.
Yeah, and well, exactly. He's like, I don't have time for this. I don't have patience for this. I'm still trying to sort out this other shit transformation thing I just went through. Like, just fucking listen, just take them and fucking go. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Susan does, but then there's this moment right after. Well, yeah, reluctantly. But then there's this moment when, Murphy and Harry are alone, and Harry's all like, okay, like, we owe Marcone now. We can't just let him die here. And Murphy's like, motherfucker, like, if you're setting me up, there's no witnesses now.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like straight back, like, they had that moment, but Murphy's right back to it.
Yeah, well,
and
I mean, she doesn't say it as harsh, but she is just like she does kind of be like, I can't quite
just seems
help
like a
but
reluctance, though.
Yeah, it is. Like, she's
She
not
was
full on
very
like, oh
honest
my god, you're still against me, but she's like,
about not trusting him.
yeah, that's the thing,
So
is
it's-
right, that she's like, I want to help you out. Like, what you're saying is right, but it could also screw me over big time.
Well, I really like that closing line, though, when she's like, like, he's like, whatever. He's like, you want to be safe, go with Susan. Otherwise, bitch. Like,
yeah, she's like, fine, fuck you. But yeah,
fuck you, Harry
exactly.
Dresden.
Yeah.
I like it, though. She doesn't call him Harry, she doesn't call him Dresden. She's like, fuck you, Harry Dresden. It's like a little bit more like, I don't think she ever calls him his full name.
Not usually.
Right? So it's just like, I don't know, for me, this moment was just very much like a very finalized. And even Harry, he says his like famous last words.
Well, and again, this is that dynamic with like Harry and Murph that makes this book frustrating, because you're like, dudes, no. And as you see it grow and develop, and right, but like right after he comes back and Susan is like, hey, baby, okay. He's like, don't touch me. Mm-hmm. Right? He's like not trying to be like an asshole per se, but he's like, seriously, like, you can't, like, don't touch me right now. That's
Yeah, he's really
I'm
standoffish.
in a mood.
I'm in a mood. I've got all like it just it's not safe one way or the other. Like emotionally, physically, like I could still rip your throat out or whatever. Right? It's just like right. And so here, right? He's like, hey, I guess we're gonna have to. And she's like, oh my god, like this could totally be like, yeah, you say right, Susan, the alphas, everybody we know our allies are gone. The only people here are Marcone wolves, right? People ready.
Again, and to be fair to Murphy in this moment, she does totally feel like if you don't know that Harry's on your team, it's Murphy versus everyone right now.
It's a very murky, right? Because I don't know if she
Murphy
knows
versus
all
Wizard,
who-
Murphy versus Gangster, Murphy versus
Loup
Garou,
like
Murphy versus FBI, like
and we don't know if she knows that the other three wolves are down.
dead, right?
Right? Like we don't know where she's been, if she can identify one wolf from another, like, you know what I mean? Like, so she doesn't know if she knows Denton for sure, because they just broke that fight up, but beyond that, exactly, it's like, is there four of them
and
still?
Tera West is still here too, who she doesn't know she can trust or not.
Right.
Yeah,
He doesn't know that
yeah.
she's for sure going to go back to the... I mean, again, she should kind of be ally given everything that has gone down, right? But again,
As
right?
far as Murphy's concerned. And I get, like,
a
I
lot
get
of
it.
unknowns,
Right?
right? It's like, yeah, exactly. And especially, given
It would
the
be
way
scary,
she was suckered into this whole
and she doesn't have even
situation
her gun right now. She might have been.
Yeah.
Did she steal the FBI?
She got and he's like, because when he comes out of it, I guess maybe that is it. She might know because he comes out of it and he describes Roger as laying there still like clutching his gun, and then he's like, oh, Murphy must have picked up Wilson's. So I guess maybe she did come across
So at least she has a gun,
the
but,
bodies
yeah.
there, but so she has a gun and but exactly right. It's not her comfortable familiar weapon for good or bad. It's no silver loaded in it because it's not her gun. It's exactly and what all. But yeah, exactly. But this is just what
It
I
is a
love.
little bit Last Stand,
But this is
for
that
Murphy.
that tough love between Murphy and Dresden, right? She's not like, hey, buddy, are you okay? Like, can we go?
Fuck you.
Yeah, she's like, you can still be screaming. He's like, fine, go back to the fucking van and be safe. And she's like, fine, fuck you, let's go. I'm like, all right, cool, let's go, bro.
It's so Murphy and Dresden,
It's
but at
so
the same
Murphy
time,
and
it's like,
Dresden.
fuck, guys, you're
Yes.
friends. Why don't you see that?
Yeah, well, I can say that's what's but
Yeah.
this is still again,
Okay,
right? It's
I
like
know.
that is see how well your dynamic
And
works.
I see people who
You can
say
just
that
tell
they
each
don't
other
like
to-
Murphy, and I'm like, fuck you.
What is
Fuck you.
No.
God, people on the internet,
They
don't
just
like
don't get
Murphy.
it.
I know, right?
They-
I'm like,
they-
learn how to read a book.
Yeah.
They clearly just stopped reading at this one.
Yeah, I'm like,
They didn't-
excuse
they
me,
didn't keep
these are two
going.
best friends.
They just
How dare
don't
you?
understand how sarcasm and that works.
If you don't like Murphy, fuck you.
Well, their chemistry takes time to gel.
It does, and we throw all the contention onto Full Moon, but there are so many more moments throughout the books when they get into this harsh fighting and like they're not friends or they're not allies, right? Like,
Well, I don't know if I would say so many more. They disagree with each other. I'll give you that because Murphy is still very much her own person and has her right. So I don't know that I'd necessarily say they're ever on opposite sides like this again. They might disagree on the methods, but not the meat or whatever the point. But yeah, there is. It still does take a couple of books before that fully sort of resolves itself and meshes a little, right? Like it starts getting much better after this, but yeah, it still takes a little bit before they really exactly figure out.
well, even like by the end of this book, they're not friends again, you know?
Yeah, which is why, I think you say it still takes another
You're
book
right.
or two to sort of figure that, but yeah. But she really, like, fuck you, Harry Dresden. He's like, it was time to face the Loup Garou.
This concludes our episode 5.16, A Wolf in Geek's Clothing. Thank you for listening. You can find us online at freeflowrambling.com and McAnally's.ca. There we have links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and to see more content. We are Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.